Happy Halloween and welcome to the Unsolicited Film Reviews podcast. I'm Zach Miller, he's Martin Cook, and we are celebrating on this All Hallows Eve some of the greatest horror films ever made. From slashers to supernatural, we got you covered. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. But first, we have some industry news. Martin, take it away, because my lighting guy's gone again. That fucking lazy bastard.
All right. In what is sure to be horror-filled news for Paramount, Taylor Sheridan is leaving Paramount in 2029 when his deal runs out for a reported up to $1 billion possible deal with NBC Universal. Now, this is a huge deal in the movie and TV industry, especially TV at this point, because Taylor Sheridan is responsible for basically all of Paramount's big hits recently. Like, so he's responsible for Yellowstone and all the sequels and prequels to that. Landman, Mayor of Kingstown, Lioness, Tulsa King. Like, the guy is just a machine pumping out these series. And his deal with NBC Universal will start January 1st, 2029. It's reportedly a 5-year deal for film, TV, and streaming. And yeah, this is just a huge blow for Paramount after the buyout from Skydance, as it kind of tries to find its footing again.
Mm.
And apparently, it basically came down to the relationship between Sheridan and the owner of Skydance, new owner of Paramount, David Ellison, because David Ellison wanted to take a bit of a firmer hand. Taylor Sheridan was given basically free reign to do whatever the fuck he wanted at Paramount, including spend up to $20 million an episode. And David Ellison kind of wanted to rein some of that in. And so Taylor Sheridan decided to take his ball and go home.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely a horrific Halloween October news for Paramount.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, he's one of the greatest storytellers we have at this juncture in just story, yeah, just film and television.
Yeah.
So to lose him is yeah. It's you don't want to get in a dick swinging contest with somebody who's already as established as that. So
Yeah, no. And obviously, he's got a big ego. David Ellison's got a big
of
ego.
course.
It just is one of those things that the clash was maybe somewhat inevitable.
Yeah. But with that, we have our box office report for the week.
Right. So every week I say it's another weird week at the box office, and it seems to be again. Maybe this is just the new normal. Because number one at the box office is something called Chainsaw Man, which is a Japanese animated film. I think it's maybe based on an animated series that I've never heard of before. It made $18 million at the box office for it's now made 66 million worldwide. Number two was another new release, a sort of family drama called Regretting You, which
Hmm.
made 13.7 million. It's made 28 million worldwide. Third place was our new entrant from last week, Black Phone 2, which is made another 12, $13 million, is now up over $135 million worldwide. So, pretty big hit there. Fourth place is one that I believe you saw this past week, or just before we recorded last podcast, maybe, which
Yep.
was the new Springsteen biopic, Springsteen Deliver Me from Nowhere, which made 8.8 million. It's made about 18 million worldwide. Yeah, you weren't all that impressed, and it hasn't really been getting much buzz, so I don't think you were alone in that. And then in fifth place, another one that most people haven't been impressed with, or at least moviegoers, and that's Tron Ares. It's
Mm.
still raking in a little bit of cash, made about another 5 million on the weekend. It's still, it's made about 155 million worldwide, but it's still lost a lot of money to this point.
Yeah, and to your point, this month of October 2025 has been the worst box office month in 27 years.
Yeah.
That is notwithstanding the pandemic, but yeah, just awful, awful. And there have been some decent movies that have come out this month, but nothing that's going to get everybody to the theaters. So,
Right. Yeah.
And we only have two wide releases this week, and only one is new. So it's gonna continue to be kind of lackluster.
Mhm.
We have the Back to the Future 40th anniversary. I'm sure a lot of people go out and see that, and we have Begonia, the latest from director Yorgos Lanthimos, starring guess who?
Emma Stone.
Emma Stone. She's becoming the Johnny Depp to his Tim Burton, I guess. And but
Yeah.
it also has Jesse Plemons. It's hard to tell what this film's about, which is par for the course as far as Yorgos Lanthimos films. But
Mhm.
you know it's gonna be fucking weird. I know I'm a bigger fan of his than you are, especially when it comes to the likes of like The Lobster and Poor Things. But
Yeah, yeah. Poor things, I respected some parts of it. I really did not like the
yeah.
lobster.
Now, as we said before, we are not horror fanboys. We're not overly invested in the supernatural slashers or jump scares, but we do appreciate good films. That's what this podcast is all about, no matter what the genre. So we chose not 10, but 11, which we tend to do if there's a very heated discussion about the top 10. So we're choosing 11 that kind of encapsulate that philosophy. And Martin, you want to start us off with number
Yeah,
11?
so I'm going to start us off with at sort of a tie for number 10, and that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So this is a 1974 independent film by Tobe Hooper. I may be pronouncing his first name wrong. I don't know if it's Toby
Mhm.
or Tobe. It's Tobe. It stars Marilyn Burns and Paul Partain. It is credited by most people as one of the earliest slasher movies and
Mhm.
introduced or at least helped to popularize tons of tropes of the slasher genre, including the final girl, right? Power tools being used by the villain, and of course the masked villain.
Mm.
And in this one, the mask is really creepy, which is part of what makes this movie so good because it's this stitched together skin that the guy
Ugh.
wears.
Yeah.
And the villain's name is Leatherface. This film was made for around $140,000. And despite initial trouble by Hooper finding a distributor, even like people just really didn't want to put this out there, eventually he did. And he also didn't want an R rating. He got an R rating. It still ended up making over $30 million at the box office. So incredible success, especially
Yeah,
compared to the
especially
budget.
yeah, and if you adjust that for inflation, then yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's like 100 and something million. Yeah, yeah, even adjusting the budget for inflation, I think it's less than a million still. So incredible. One small, just fun fact about this movie: the narrator of this film was John Larroquette, like a future sitcom fame from Night Court, and he had a
Okay,
bunch of
okay.
others. This is his first ever film credit. And apparently, because this was, just such a low budget independent film, and he wasn't really anything at that point. This was his first film credit. Apparently, he was paid in weed.
Hey, it's the
So,
70s.
yeah, it's the 70s. So I just thought that was a really fun fact about this movie. And so, just in terms of what makes this a great horror movie, I think one of the things that, and we'll see this in a couple of the movies we have on this list, a lot of it is about outsiders coming to communities that they just don't understand and they're very weird. Even though the two of
Uh,
the main characters kind of grew up in this town, they clearly don't know what's going on in this community, in this town at this point in their lives. And that kind of tends to be a theme in a bunch of different horror movies. Like there's just yeah, you come in and you don't know what's going on, and people are weird, and it just creeps you out. And I think the fact that this was such a horror, such a low budget movie, just adds just to the creepiness and gringiness factor of this film.
yeah, I'm actually surprised that it costs over 100,000
Yeah,
because
it's true.
I'm not sure where that is on the screen, honestly, because just looks very bare bones, almost looks like it was made with a handheld just camcorder.
Yeah,
So I don't know. Maybe it all went to the weed budget.
maybe. Yeah. Apparently they did only have one camera.
Hmm.
And so they had to yeah, just kind of make do with what they had.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. So to be fair to them, not everybody had a camera in their pocket. So
Yeah.
and cameras were exceptionally expensive back in the
Yeah.
day.
Right.
But yeah, it's funny he brought up John Larroquette because I remember him as a kid from just being the bad guy in the Macaulay Culkin Richard Rich movie. So
Okay.
total tangent, but just had to throw that out there. But yeah, Texas Chainsaw, as you said, was one of the original, if not the original slasher, and we didn't include it in last week's great horror franchises because it just all went downhill after that.
Yeah.
And all the remakes were way too polished. It was just like Jessica Biel and Alexander Daddario having short tank tops and stuff like that. But this one was legitimately creepy,
Yeah.
and it was body horror before that was really a thing. And we didn't see every little detail of the kills, but we saw quite enough to spook us.
Yeah, and the reason why we didn't see a lot of the details was because the director was trying not to get an R rating, and it didn't end up
Exactly.
helping him anyway. He still got the R rating, but yeah, in a way that almost, again, it kind of leaves stuff to the imagination, and it's just a very off-putting movie, in the best possible way, because that's obviously what it was intended to be.
Yeah, and in the very end, I mean, spoiler alert, but even the final scene is very chilling. Like the final girl gets away, but she's drenched in blood, just hitchhiking her way in a pickup truck, while
Yeah,
Leatherface is just like jubilantly like
yeah,
throwing his chainsaw around and just like like I'm gonna be back for another bitch.
yeah.
Yeah, but definitely deserve to be on this list. Then we have Rosemary's Baby, 1968 supernatural horror film, directed by, yes, we know we've been through this. Every time we talk about any of Roman Polanski's films, we have to say that yes, he's a child rapist and a fugitive.
Yeah.
We acknowledge that he's a terrible person, and if you can separate art from artist, he is an incredible filmmaker. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a just a fact of reality.
Yeah.
But this is an legitimately creepy movie to me because it's something that not necessarily that could actually happen, like the seed of the Antichrist and like all that kind of stuff. But the cultish elements are definitely true and definitely something that actually happens in real life. And God, Mia Farrow is just so naive, so innocent, and just so full of like kind of a joie de vivre in this
Yeah.
movie. And to see she has such an incredible arc, uh, because I guess I guess we're gonna have to spoil at least partially all of
Yeah,
these.
I mean, for these movies that are 30 years old, I
Yeah,
think it doesn't help, it doesn't matter too much. But
yeah, and this one's over 50 years old. So
yeah, 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 exactly. And everybody probably at least knows the saying Rosemary's Baby, so you probably have a sense of what Rosemary's Baby is, even if you haven't seen the film. So,
yeah, so I put this one forward, and I guess it was either going to be this or The Omen,
mm,
but I think the filmmaking, the slow burn,
yeah,
God, it's a just about over a 2 hour movie, which was very long for back in the day, and uh, yeah, so I haven't even really explained the plot. So,
oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I didn't really
so
explain the plot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre either, but yeah, okay,
there's more plot in this one than check this text, to be
fair
fair.
enough.
But
Yes,
yeah. So, okay. Rosemary is moving in with her new husband to this New York apartment, and everybody around her seems super friendly, super just welcoming. And, but she has been chosen by this cult of Satanists to bring forth the Antichrist into the world. And that's basically the plot.
Yeah.
and she tries to resist at
Although we
every
don't know
turn.
that stuff until near the end of the movie.
Right,
As
exactly.
you
We
say, it's
know,
very much a slow burn.
yeah, we know there's something going on, and
Yeah.
there's very unsettling score and tension, and every scene kind of, whether it's the cinematography or just the way somebody answers a question, or just like the over exuberancy of her neighbors to
Yeah.
welcome them into the neighborhood is just very off-putting in some way or fashion. And if you don't know the plot, you're still on edge the entire time.
Yeah,
And
just the way they kind of they very quickly just take over her life.
yes, yes.
Uh yeah, they just couldn't start controlling everything to the point that she's not really she doesn't she loses contact with all her former friends and yeah, it's very upsetting.
And her husband is John Cassavetes, who is the father of of Notebook fame, Nick Cassavetes, Nick Cassavetes, and they're like a Hollywood dynasty in their own right. But he did a
Yeah.
very, very good job as like this struggling actor who basically
Yeah.
bartered this deal between uh, the cult and him, that like he would be a successful actor if he would give up his firstborn child
Yeah.
to this Satanist cult.
And he's just an awful husband to her,
Yes.
like throughout the movie.
Yeah.
There's one part in the movie where, okay, so basically at the point where she does get basically raped by Satan
Mhm.
after being drugged, uh, she it was supposed to be their baby making night as them as a couple because they were going to try for a baby. And the next morning, uh, she's like, "Oh, what happened?" He's like, "Oh yeah, well, you were passed out, so I didn't want to miss baby making night." And he says something to the effect of, like I rewatched this week. He says something to the effect of, it was a bit of a necrophilia thing, but it was interesting. I was like, oh my God, this guy's horrible. Like that should have
Yeah.
been her first red flag, or there should have been many before that. Get out of this relationship. But yeah,
Yeah, and
it's just like the whole movie is kind of slow psychological torture of Mia Farrow's character of Rosemary.
well, yeah, which actually affects me because, I'm not like a ghost person, or I don't think a serial killer is going to come at me in the night, although,
Hmm.
anything's possible. But it's just very chilling because of the way you see Pharaoh just being so tortured.
Yeah,
And the last 20 minutes though was especially creepy, where
yeah.
everybody's just like raising a glass and cheering "Hail Satan," and the most the most chilling part is that she decides to wind up raising the baby.
Yeah, that final scene. I mean, we don't actually see. I mean, she doesn't say yes, I've done it, but the very final scene is incredibly chilling because the baby, the Satan baby that we haven't really seen, but it's sort of described to us that he has these crazy eyes and
Hmm.
maybe hooves or something. Um, that it's crying in this crib, this black crib with black drapes, and and at the very end, after they're trying to get her to be the mother for this child, she starts slowly rocking it to get it to stop crying, and as she does it you see this kind of look of almost like, oh, my baby, come across her face, and that's how the movie ends. Yeah, very chilling.
Hmm.
All right, let's move on to number 9 on our list, and that is Midsummer. This is a 2019 film by Ari Aster, starring Florence Pugh, Jack Reynor, William Jackson Harper, and our old friend of the podcast, Will Poulter. We love that guy.
Hell
Now,
yeah.
we talked about this film a little bit in our episode on the production company A24, who
Hmm.
produced this movie, and because it was one of A24's first big hits. The thing that's notable about this horror movie is that it is very unique in that it's a horror movie that takes place entirely in daylight.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
so, just a very short recap of the story. Um, Florence Pugh and a bunch of her college friends who are studying, I guess, different cultures or whatever. And again, this is sort of the theme of outsiders going to a community that they don't understand. They are brought along by a friend of theirs from Sweden, I believe. Uh, I think it's Sweden, to go.
It might be Norway. It's one of those Nordic
Yeah, yeah,
countries. So
to
yeah.
to a Nordic country.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in probably since last year. But yeah, some Nordic country to a small community where they have this big midsummer festival where it's because they're far enough north. It's basically daylight all the time. And when she gets there, she's again kind of very welcomed into this community, and weird stuff starts to happen. Let's put it that way, because this is a newer movie, so I don't want to spoil this one entirely. But this is one of the more unique horror films that you will ever see, and it just really is affecting and very interesting and very well made.
Yeah, and it basically introduced the world at large to Florence Pugh,
Mm.
who is one of the greatest actors of this current upcoming generation, or I guess I mean, not upcoming anymore. She has officially arrived.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And I saw this opening night in a packed theater, believe it or not, for a horror movie,
Hmm.
and one that didn't have a pre-existing IP.
Yeah, and
And
Ari Aster wasn't that well known before this either. So
no, so I was cramped but thrilled because it is almost a 3 hour movie, and I had to sit like in the this like the sixth row in between people, so they're like bathroom breaks are always awkward when you have to walk over people. Excuse me. Anyway, yeah, but uh, I loved it from the opening shot, and basically the only dark scenes in it where the initial ones where Florence Pugh's character's sister kills herself and
that's
the
right.
entire family.
Yeah.
And that's in the opening shot, so I'm not going to spoil the ending, but and so that just catapults her into this whole wave of obvious grief and denial, and just going through all the stages of just losing your sister and both your parents in one fell swoop.
Hmm.
And not to mention her boyfriend's a total asshole to her,
Yeah.
who was about to dump her before he found out that this tragedy befell her. And so he's basically with her out of guilt by the time they go to this trip, because he's going to seem like a total douchebag if he dumps her after her sister kills her family. And that would be true, but I don't know, is it better to just cut bait? And I don't know, well, as it turns out, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, Will Poulter adds a lot of levity,
He
and
does. He plays sort of like the stereotypical kind of ugly American tourist.
yeah, of course, yeah, has no regard for this country's independent culture and what their beliefs are and what their traditions are. And yeah, and that's basically the case for everybody except Florence Pugh's character, who is looking for belonging, looking for a family since she just lost one, and that's why she is the May Queen. But man, yeah, just so well done. Again, it's a over 2.5 hours. The director's cut's over 3 hours, but it's well worth a watch.
I've never seen the director's cut. I may have to put that on my list of things to watch.
And then we have, for the third time on this podcast, this particular Unsolicited Film Reviews feed, we're gonna have to at least mention Halloween.
Yeah.
We talked about it in our 70s podcast because it was while Texas Chainsaw came out a couple years earlier, this was the slasher film of the day. This is the one that inspired everything else that came after it. And uh, you know, John Carpenter, the score was fantastic. John Carpenter did the score as well. And we covered all this back when we were just on Spotify before YouTube, and we did Halloween as a series last week. So I really don't have any other specific notes unless you want to just zero in on the film itself.
No, just yeah, not too much. Just to say, just to repeat a couple of the small things that very quickly that we mentioned when we talked about it in our 70s podcast, that it's when you go back and rewatch it again, it seems it's very well done because
Mm.
it seems almost tame because there's only about 3 or 4 people who die in this movie.
Hmm.
Um, but John Carpenter is just a master of building that tension throughout.
Yes,
And some
yes.
of that comes from the music, some of it comes from just the way he's filming and moving around this town and in houses and things like that. And it is a classic for a reason, and obviously needed to be on this list for a reason because it is just so well made and just a template for not only slasher films that came after it, but I think just horror movies in general in terms of how to build tension in scenes like that.
Yeah, when we were coming up with this list and texting back and forth, I was like, "Really? Are we gonna be talking about Halloween 3 times over the past couple of years?" And but you are right; it wouldn't be a complete list if we left this one out. So yeah, it'd be a disservice to this film.
Yeah. So that takes us to number 7. And here we've got the oldest film on our list, and that is Nosferatu, the 1922 original. So the actual full title, well, it's title in German, so the full translated title is Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror,
Mm.
so this might be the first film that ever had the word horror in the title. It's a 1922 German silent film by F.W. Murnau, starring Max Schreck as the titular Nosferatu. Um, so the filmmakers who started this production company were actually occultists who had survived World War One and kind of wanted to make a vampire movie, but they didn't have the rights to Bram Stoker's Dracula. I don't think they ever even really tried to get the rights. So they changed some of the names and details, like the vampire's named Count Orlok instead of Count Dracula, and things like that. Um, One of the problems is that they freely admitted that was adapted to Dracula, including in a lot of the promotional materials back in 1922. So Bram Stoker's widow sued and eventually won in 1925. And the court ordered that all prints of the film were supposed to be destroyed. Luckily, a few of them survived. And that led to kind of a resurgence of the film in the late 20s and then continued to this day. And people have been able to make copies of some of those original prints. So this is like the definitive Gothic monster movie, in my
Hmm.
opinion. And it also started a whole bunch of the tropes of vampire movies. I mean, this was the first time a vampire really had been on screen, including some that weren't actually part of Bram Stoker's book. So while, for instance, in Dracula, there's references to vampires kind of being uncomfortable in sunlight. It wasn't this thing that like killed vampires, but in Nosferatu, that became a trope that we still see to this day. And there's just a bunch of other kind of tropes in terms of how vampire movies have been made. The other thing, though, that's incredibly significant and about this movie is just how it was filmed, how it was shot. Again, this is 1922, and some of this stuff hadn't been done before. F.W. Murnau became a just a star in German filmmaking and probably in filmmaking around the world. It's some of the the Dutch angles, just the way he kind of keeps the audience off balance to, again, much like John Carpenter and Halloween, kind of build that tension, but also just make things seem creepy and odd and out of the ordinary is was just brilliant and ahead of its time. And so I had to, this was one of my suggestions. This had to be on our list.
Yeah, the German expressionism at its finest for
Mm.
sure, and like we wouldn't have the likes of Tim Burton if it weren't for films like Nosferatu and The
Yeah.
Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. But and yeah, we went super in depth in this one as well in our 20s
Yes,
podcast
we
that
did.
was only on
The
Spotify.
the very first one we did in our century.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. But yeah, man, this is still creepy. If you like, again, we keep going back to this thing where if it the more minimalist things are, and it wasn't minimalist for its time. It was very
No.
ahead of the curve for its time.
Yeah.
But the more minimalist, like by today's standards, I always think it's more unsettling. And just Robert Eggers just came out with the remake of Nosferatu, and it's been done a couple times, but this is like, you know, very true to the original. Robert Eggers came out with Nosferatu last year.
Yeah.
And while it was not my favorite Robert Eggers movie, I think it was still good. But back to the original, just that the cat as you go back to like the cinematography and the lighting and everything, the casting of the long shadow of the
Yes.
fingers coming
Yeah.
across the screen
Yeah.
is just one of the most iconic shots in film history, and it's been well over 100 years at this point. So yeah, this film will hopefully never leave the consciousness of those who are fans of horror or just early film or just filmmaking itself,
Film in
because
general. Yeah.
yeah, they did the best with the tools they had.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, I think it's time for a little drink break then.
Yes. And this is going to be one of our most complicated and involved drinks we've ever done. And I got to say, I'm a little nervous about this one. I'm not sure how this one's going to turn out, but why don't you tell the good people what it is we're going to be trying here today?
I'll tell the good people and the bad people.
Yes. We,
It's not.
we accept all kinds here on the podcast.
So this is called pumpkin spice punch. And full disclosure, I just cannot stand the entire pumpkin spice craze as just a general rule. Um,
I'm not a big
just
fan myself.
yeah, it just seems like a really just like a I don't want to use a derogatory term, but it's just a really dumb fad. Anyway, so just like last week, I picked up a pamphlet from my local liquor store, and we had a couple cocktails to choose from. Martin chose something, but I was like, you know what? We neither of us like the pumpkin spice thing, but what the hell? We're here to try new cocktails, so let's just
Yeah.
fucking lean into it. So what you're gonna need is 2 ounces of bourbon.
Or whiskey in my case, because yeah, bourbon we still can't get up here in Canada for the moment.
Ah, I guess just to drive the nail into the coffin, I have Jefferson's bourbon,
Okay.
one of our founding fathers. So you're gonna need 2 ounces of that. Oh, all the initial ingredients are going into a shaker, by the way. So don't pour that
Yes,
directly
this
into
is
your
definitely
glass.
one that's going to need to be shaken up.
So 2 ounces of bourbon, 1 ounce of pumpkin puree, and I don't know how you measure pumpkin puree. It looks like I have a can of like Chef Boyardee here or dog food, but I'm guessing it's just like a small spoonful or
Yeah,
like
I had the same issue. I just put some, and now I'm just gonna have to make myself a pumpkin pie or something because I don't know what I'm gonna do with the rest of the can of pumpkin puree. But I put some in this thing, and I'll just scoop a little bit with this spoon. And
Now, one thing about this recipe that I had an issue with is it calls for 3 ounces of ginger beer, but if you shake up a carbonated beverage, it's going to lose its carbonation. So my recommendation would be to pour that just directly into the rocks glass that we're going to use this for,
yeah, that's a very good idea.
and
Yeah,
then pour the rest of the ingredients in
because
after
yeah,
you've
you definitely don't
shaken
want to
it.
shake up the ginger beer
Then
already.
we have 1 ounce of fresh squeezed lemon juice, a dash of
Yeah.
ground ginger.
Yes.
And then 1 teaspoon of honey, which was the most complicated ingredient for me because I had a jar of honey, but it was all crystallized, so
Oh, okay.
it wasn't gonna do the melting by itself. So
Yeah, I actually didn't have any honey at the moment, so I just went out and got myself the classic, in the shape of the
yeah, there you go.
bear
Yep,
thing,
that's what I
and
should have done. Yep.
put that.
Okay, so
Oh,
got
right.
those ingredients in there, and we are going to garnish it
How
with
much
either
ginger was it? It was just a dash, right?
yeah, just a dash because it gets pretty
Ooh,
bitter pretty quickly.
it's might have been a big dash. So I think that's everything there.
And then there's optional garnishes. You can either do a cinnamon stick, sage leaves, or a dash of ground cinnamon. I'm going with the cinnamon stick. So taking up all these ingredients. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just doing a little bit of ground cinnamon that I'll sprinkle on top once I pour everything else in.
All right,
Okay.
pouring out all the
Uh,
ingredients.
I brought a cloth this time for sure because
Nice.
shake up that pumpkin puree. I don't know how that's going to strain through here, but we'll find out.
Okay, yep.
Just
Just
add the
adding a little bit of
I
the
think I'll
ginger
add
beer.
the ginger beer first and then pour the other stuff on top now because that'll probably sink to the bottom more.
Yep. Then I'm just gonna toss my cinnamon stick. Oh, get this opened. All right, cinnamon stick added,
Oh, I just know this is going to stick again.
and
My,
that's
do you ever find issues with your shaker that it
oh, that sticks. Hell yeah.
sticks? Yeah. All right, I've taken to using an Allen key to like grab the where the thing is, like pull it out. That tends to be my technique that seems to work. So now I'm gonna just do a little dash of cinnamon here on top.
I admire your ingenuity, sir.
And let's give this a try. As I said, I'm a little nervous about this one. We'll see how it is.
Damn, I like it.
That is actually not terrible. I am surprised. I am surprised. I was thinking this was gonna be, yeah, that's actually really good. I guess the whiskey and the ginger beer and the lemon juice kind of overpowers everything else, but you can barely, it's just a hint of the pumpkin,
Mm-hmm.
which is good because I was worried that it was going to be too overpowering. Maybe I didn't add a full ounce. Who the hell knows how much an ounce of pumpkin whatever puree is, but
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely recommend that one, especially for, as we said, two people that are opposed to the pumpkin spice craze.
yeah, yeah. But if it is, yeah, called pumpkin spice punch. And I think I would recommend that one actually as one if you're making like punch for a party, like for a whole
Hmm.
bunch of people, just, obviously uh make that recipe 10 times or whatever, and that would probably be a pretty good punch to serve.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, oh man, I just gotta take another taste of that.
Yeah, put my pumpkin spoon back down here now.
Yeah, that is perfect for a mass drink at a Halloween party. Throw just like a
Yeah.
couple cinnamon sticks in there, and hell yeah, yeah. I'm never gonna be the first in line at Starbucks to get the pumpkin spice latte, but
No,
the pumpkin spice punch. Try
not
it,
too shabby.
you'll like
Yep.
it. All right, let's get back to the films. Next up, we have excuse me. Next up, we have Get Out, 2017 ultimate psychological horror by Jordan Peele. And man, phenomenal script, so original, catapulted Jordan Peele to superstardom from co-star of a sketch comedy show
Yeah.
to basically the Black Hitchcock. And stars Daniel Kaluuya, Allison Williams, Lil Ray Howery, Lakeith Stanfield, Bradley Whitford, among others. Even Stephen Root's in there, and Stephen Root's excellent in anything he appears in.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, fantastic cast. Jeez.
Oh, and Catherine Keener.
Oh, of
Oh,
course, right.
yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Uh, man, what a take on race. And I think we discussed this. We hadn't quite started the podcast yet. We didn't start that until 2020 or no, 2018. But yeah, Get Out was one of our favorite movies of the the 2010s, definitely. And won Jordan Peele the Oscar for best screenplay, and totally deserved. He even in his Oscar speech said that it took him 10 years. He never thought this film was going to be made. He threw it away, came back to it, threw it away, came back to it. And yeah, okay, so it's about this black dude, this black photographer who is going out with this rich white girl played by Allison Williams, and he goes to meet the parents. It's like a guess who's coming to dinner situation,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and it plays like that for the first 30 minutes or so. Well, first of all, the very first scene is when Lakeith Stanfield's character gets kidnapped, so we know it's not going to be a guess is coming to dinner situation. But so that's another thing that all great horror movies do is the first scene like sets the tone. Then we go back to like normal life, but we
Yeah.
always know that there's that undertone of like, oh shit, what's going to happen to that guy? That whatever happened to that person.
Yeah.
So anyway, uh, the family turns out to be a bunch of body snatchers who inhabit the bodies of a bunch of white people that inhabit the bodies of black people in order to basically remain immortal. So, but it's such a great social commentary, so much to say, and that's why it's on this list.
Absolutely, yeah. It's such a unique. A lot of the great horror movies over the years have had broader themes that they're trying to explore through different ways. I mean, we talked a little bit about that last week when we talked about Night of the Living Dead and movies like that. But this one really took it to another level of using the horror genre to tell a different kind of story and really talk about themes of racial injustice and the kind of ownership that that whites have sometimes felt over black people throughout history. Some of the same themes actually that we mentioned when we talked about the movie Sinners from earlier this year.
Oh yeah, yep.
But just in a totally different context. And yeah, you mentioned the cast. They're all fantastic in this. Like Allison Williams, I think is great and probably an underrated actress that doesn't get her due. But her role in this was really good because till near the end, you're not sure if she's in on it or not with her family. And that was she just did a fantastic job. And yeah, what can you say? As you mentioned, kind of launched Jordan Peele into the second act of his American life.
Yeah, and financial hit, critical hit. You couldn't ask for a better filmmaking debut.
No, that's for sure. All right. That takes us to number five, and it's another John Carpenter film. So, yeah, absolute master of horror. And this is The Thing, which is a 1982 film directed by Carpenter, starring Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, and Keith David, among others. It was written by Bill Lancaster based on a 1938 novella by John W. Campbell. Um, and this one is unique amongst horror films in that it's set in Antarctica. So although it was filmed in Alaska and British Columbia, and the indoor shots were actually filmed in freezers in LA, but it actually initially got bad reviews and didn't make much money at the box office. But like a lot of films have released kind of around that time, it gained a cult following about 10 years later once it was released on home video. And then people started to rewatch it and revisit what it was, what it was all about and really appreciated the film. And it's now kind of widely recognized as one of the best horror films of all time. Interestingly enough, John Carpenter was first approached by Universal Studios, who had the rights to do of the novella, to do this in the mid 70s, but he turned it down. So then they actually turned to Tobe Hooper of Texas Chainsaw Massacre fame, who they had under contract. But when he turned in his treatment of him and his co-writer, Universal didn't like it, and so they just kind of, sat on it for a few years, and it was kind of maybe dead until Carpenter became, a big name through Halloween, and also Alien was a big hit at the box
Oh
office,
yeah, yeah, good point.
and
Yep.
which was also about a killer alien, as
Yeah,
it
sci-fi
was.
horror. Yeah.
Yeah, sci-fi horror. And so that got them to, take another stab at it, try to call Carpenter again. They got him in the mix, and that's how it happened. So this one is, as I said, unique, and it's really, this is very familiar to a lot of horror movies, is that it's an isolated location. Like the only one I think on our list that I can think of that takes place in a metropolitan area is Rosemary's Baby. And
Hmm.
in that one, it's in New York City, but it's also kind of very contained. Or is it Washington? Maybe it's Washington, but it was filmed in New York. But it's very contained because it's all taking place kind of in this apartment complex. But a lot of horror movies are in these isolated locations, and it's hard to get more isolated than Antarctica, unless you're
Exactly.
talking about, a movie like Alien or something that's set in outer space. Um, but it's just, yeah, I've already kind of explained the plot. So these guys are at this station, and the Norwegian station nearby has uncovered this spaceship and this alien that shapeshifts and can take on, mimic any form. It could be a dog, it could be a human, comes and basically tries to take over all their bodies and kill them all, which adds just another really incredibly uh, tense element to this movie, which is you never know who's who in this
Hmm.
film. You never know who the villain really is because it can look like anybody, and that's just an incredible premise for a horror movie.
Yeah, I love the initial cry on is Antarctica, winter, 1982.
Yeah,
Like that's already scary.
yeah,
But this is another horror film with a message and one that really makes you think. And like as you kind of alluded to, one of the scariest situations imaginable. You're stuck in fucking Antarctica, first of all, with people you don't necessarily know or trust. It's just kind of scientists thrown together to do a job. And then there's a shape-shifting alien killing everyone on sight with literally no way to escape.
yeah,
Like if you're in Haddonfield, Illinois, at least you can go down the street. But
yeah,
and even if you're in Norway or Sweden, you can run off into the woods technically, but if you leave this little base that you're in, you're going to die
you
by the
die.
elements within 10 minutes.
Yeah. And
So
also, like as an added sort of plot device, their radios and all their vehicles have been disabled. So
yeah, so let's just throw that on top of
yeah,
there.
if it wasn't bad enough.
Yeah. So yeah, the claustrophobia is palpable through this entire movie,
Yeah,
and Kurt Russell puts in one of the best performances of his career, I think. And it's not put up there as one of his best, but if you actually sit down and watch the movie, he delivers like everything you would want.
yeah.
And the score is fantastic. It's haunting. It's very suspenseful, and you really never know where the virus or where the alien comes from,
Mhm.
because it's implied from the beginning because there's a bunch of guys trying to kill this husky running across running across the snow. And if that were the case, I would have totally fallen victim to the thing because I'd be like, oh, come on, boy. Love dogs. So yeah, come on in, invade the entire base here. But
Yeah,
it's never explicitly said that the dog was the originator of of the alien infecting everybody.
yeah.
So and yeah, the scene where they do the blood test where
I was gonna mention that. Yeah,
yeah, that's one of the most suspenseful scenes, not even in horror, but just in film of all time, because you have these what is it, like 5 6 guys all huddled around, and somebody knows that they're infected.
yeah,
Well, everybody knows that someone is infected, but the person who is infected knows that they are, and they're just going around like putting the little antigen into the blood vials and just seeing who is who, and then all of a sudden it just
yeah.
explodes.
Well, and the scene upends expectations too, because the whole time most of the people in the room assume that the person who's infected is the person who had tampered with blood samples earlier or whatever, or had access to tampering the blood samples, and he's the one they're checking last.
Yep.
And so, without giving too much away, you're kind of waiting for him, and then actually it's somebody else. And it just incredible scene. Yeah.
Yeah, so between the premise, the claustrophobia, the filmmaking, and just the fact that it's not on a lot of top 10 horror lists, I've noticed. And
Mm.
it really should be, because it is just, if you sit there, you are on the edge of your seat from beginning to end if you're actually engaged with the film. So
Yeah.
I feel like this deserves to be where it is on the Unsolicited Film Reviews list.
Definitely. And if you aren't familiar with this film and you just think, oh, a movie called The Thing, that might sound like it's some B movie type thing, and it really isn't. Like it's a
No.
well-made, decently budgeted movie. It's just a very good horror film.
And again, it was remade in, I think, 2022.
Yeah.
Go back to the original. Come on,
Yeah.
guys. It's already top 10 horror movie of all time, and I know it's a cash grab, but come on. And that brings us to our number 4 movie as well, which is Psycho, which had also been remade and sequeled to death.
And turned into a TV series and everything else. Yeah.
Yes. So 1960, and I think we skipped Psycho in our 60s podcast because we did, like, I forgot if it was Vertigo or North by Northwest.
Yeah, I think we did Vertigo for a Hitchcock film. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, that's our first time really talking about Psycho. So this is exciting. So, the screen it was Hitchcock movie. The screenplay was by Joseph Stefano, based on a 1959 novel by Robert Bloch. Uh, Stars Anthony Perkins, Janet Leigh, and all the other actors are basically secondary to that.
Yeah.
But we even if you've never seen Psycho, you know the shower scene, you know the basic plot, and but I urge everybody listening or watching to this to actually go back and watch it, because you really don't know it's a horror film until about 35 minutes in, and
Mm.
the first kill doesn't happen until minute 41.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because
Well, and interestingly, the first kill happens to the person that you think is actually gonna is the protagonist of the film for those
yeah,
first
exactly.
like 30 minutes.
Yeah, so it really starts out as like a kind of neo-noir heist film
Mhm.
where this girl is having an affair and she steals $40,000 from her boss, and she's just on the run, trying to make it to the West Coast. And that part is so easy to forget because of the iconic, uh, just aura that the film has these days.
Yeah, once she gets to Bates Motel, yeah, that's kind of
Mhm.
where most people's remembrances of this film kick in.
Yeah, so Norman Bates is the proprietor of Bates Motel, and he has 31 rooms and 31 vacancies, which should put up a little bit of a red flag. But this is 1960, and she's desperate because she's on the run. So, uh, but the score, even from the very beginning, is insanely kinetic throughout, and I'm not just talking about the violin stabs during the shower scene. And Norman Bates, the killer, only kills 2 people in the film, which seems just so pedestrian when you're talking about modern day slashers.
Is it? Oh, you're right. It is only two. Yeah, he tries to kill another couple, but yeah,
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 and it's revealed later that he has killed some people in the past,
yeah.
but in the film he only kills 2 people.
That's right.
And yeah, it seems so pedestrian for a modern day slasher. But um again, just so creepy, so quotable. Like, every boy's best friend is his mother, and we all go a little mad sometimes. And while I do think Hitchcock had made many better films, there aren't many that are as iconic, and just got to place Psycho up here as one of the preeminent slashers. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're talking about Texas Chainsaw and Halloween, Norman Bates was probably like the grandpa.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and as you say, I mean, Hitchcock. I mean, Hitchcock's just a master at work, and you can see it in like every shot of this film. One of the remakes was actually a shot-for-shot remake, which at that point, why the hell are you doing a remake? But
Especially since it was by Gus Van Sant, Vince
yeah,
Vaughn,
he
and
was a
Meg
good
Ryan.
filmmaker in his own right.
Yeah,
So yeah,
so
very
why?
strange.
Yeah,
Yeah,
why? Those guys. Go ahead.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, but I mean that just goes to show you how much respect people have for Hitchcock. That even if you're going to try to remake it, oh well, we're just gonna have to do it exactly the same because he knew, I guess, Gus Van Sant in his heart that he just couldn't better it, right? Uh, but it's just the I think I've seen it twice. This is one I wasn't able to go back and rewatch this week, but I've seen it twice before. And the very first time I saw it, it was, obviously it's 1960. So it had been around for a long time. And so I kind of knew a little bit what it was about. And so I
Mm-hmm.
knew that Norman Bates was a killer before I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't know was the bit about his mother being dead.
Mm.
And so even the first time I saw it, even though Psycho is, just so much in the public consciousness, that came as a surprise to me. And that really freaked me out as well. So throughout the movie, when you think he's talking to his mother and his mother's telling him these things, um, like because I knew that he was the killer, but I thought that, oh, maybe his mother's forcing him to do these things or something. And then when you find out what maybe about three-quarters of the way through or something that his mother's actually dead and like her mummified corpses in the in the basement, that wow, that got me the first time I ever saw this. That just knocked me out. And yeah, it's such a good movie because it has all those different elements to it, right? It's the slasher element, but it's also the psychological horror element. It's some of those bits of that you find in even like TV shows these days, like Criminal Minds or something. It's all about what happened to this boy as that turned him into Norman Bates, right? Like it's all that kind of stuff. The making of the serial killer kind of stuff. There's all of that is in this movie.
Yeah, and I'll try to make this anecdote as quick as possible. But I grew up in the LA area for a good portion of my childhood, and so Universal Studios was a regular destination. Saw the Bates house, but okay, so I was probably no older than 8 or 9, and they took sometimes you go through the tram tour. They take you into a theater to show how things are made or show you some iconic scenes from the sets you just saw and
Yeah.
went by
Yeah.
on the tram. And so they showed the shower scene, and while they don't show actual knife going into flesh, that's part
No.
of Hitchcock's greatness, where you can feel it anyway. And goddamn, if I wasn't scared to step in the shower for another 12 years or so after that.
Yeah,
that
absolutely. And
that
and
fucked me up.
it's famous now, but it was quite original at the time that he filmed a lot of that scene from the killer's perspective,
Hmm.
right? And that, these days everybody does that, but not a lot of people did that before Hitchcock, right? Like it's hard to think of how influential some of these things were because we're so inundated with them today.
And it's weird because you're never more like vulnerable when you're naked in a shower with your eyes closed,
Yeah.
water dripping over you.
Yeah.
You can't hear anything that's going on outside. So yeah,
You
they
got the
they tap
shampoo in your hair. Yeah.
yeah, they,
Yeah.
they tapped it. You tapped into something very, very primal and visceral in that one.
Yeah. So then for number three, we're jumping forward quite a bit in time and we're into 2015. And this movie is The Witch. So this was a film by Robert Eggers, who we mentioned earlier had done a remake of Nosferatu. But was his feature directorial debut. It also starred Anya Taylor-Joy, Ralph Ineson, and Kate Dickie. And it was also Anya Taylor-Joy's first leading role. And so it just think about that. It's basically the coming out party for both Robert Eggers and Anya Taylor-Joy. What a hell of a way for them to make their mark on the movie industry.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's an incredible movie. Obviously, it makes number three on our list. It's set in sorry, 19 in 1630s. It'd be a very different film if it was set in 1930s. Set in 1630s New England. And as has now become kind of an Eggers trademark, it is meticulously researched and historically accurate down to the tiniest detail, including, of course, the language.
Hmm.
And that may make it at first glance a little bit inaccessible for some people, and which is maybe why it wasn't a huge hit, although it was a pretty big hit, especially relative to the budget. But everybody talks in this movie the way they would talk in 1630s New England. And in my view, that actually makes it more compelling because
Absolutely.
not only that, but just all the other historical details. Because what we really get a sense for is how and why people in those times and in those worlds would have believed that witches were real, would have believed that this was something that they had to contend with as they were trying to set up their homesteads. And so a lot of horror movies, you're like, oh, you see the people in the house, and it's like, oh, okay, whatever. They're in this haunted house and they're doing these things, but we're somewhat detached. Even though this is a movie set in 1630s, this was his insistence on historical accuracy, I think, made us part of what was going on in a way that it helped situate ourselves in their shoes and made everything that happened that much more terrifying. And so, yeah, so just before I toss it to you, it was a critical success, launched those careers, and it was also, relatively speaking, a box office success. It made about $40 million, but it only had a $4 million budget. So
Mm.
it did quite well compared to its budget.
Yeah, so for those of you who've been watching, I've been slowly peeling away my costume, and this is the lowest. This is the lowest. I mean, this is the last piece of clothing I'm going to remove.
Yeah,
So
we'll stop the
it's not.
striptease
Yeah,
here.
it's not going to get inappropriate, but I have my Black Phillip shirt on here just for
Yes,
this.
I love
And
it.
yeah, we've talked about A24 in one of our podcasts, but man, this was the one that really launched A24 as Anya Taylor-Joy and Robert Eggers. And it had been a studio beforehand, but man, I this is the last movie I think that I've seen multiple times in theaters, and
Okay.
I saw it three times because
Wow.
the first time I went, and I was just going because it had some of my favorite Game of Thrones actors in it, which was Ralph Ineson and Kate Dickie. And I saw it was a like a Puritan era horror film that kind of looked offbeat. So I was like, yeah, well, might as well check it out. I was still in film school at the time. Looks avant-garde, so why not? But man, I was blown away by everything. And I know this has become a cliche, but seriously, every shot in this movie looks like a painting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is so meticulously shot, so well arranged. And I watched it again this past week, and every time I watch it, I was like, God damn, this really is a fucking masterpiece. I mean, it really, really is. And as you said, Anya Taylor Joy, her breakout, and she's basically an A-lister at this point. And Robert Eggers has been on a slow but steady arc into Oscar-worthy material.
Yeah, and from a $4 million budget, now he's the kind of guy that studios are trusting with $100 million budgets. So
And
he's
yeah,
definitely come up.
I was just so captivated by the language and, as you said, the attention to detail is Robert Eggers his trademark. Like all this, like I love thee, precious. Well, you know what is it like everything and the witch overall. Like when you first watch it, it seems like a really tragic story, but it's on further reflection, it's also kind of the pinnacle of feminism.
It is a very empowering story in a way. Yeah. For the female characters.
Because Thomason and Taylor Joy's character, Anya Taylor's character, Thomason goes from having no power whatsoever and basically being on the verge of being sold to a neighboring family just so they can get some goats or crops or something like that because their farm is failing, and she winds up, her entire family's dead, so that's a minus, but but
Well,
she
it wasn't
winds
that
up
nice to her though, anyways.
yeah, but she winds up becoming this very powerful being in that she is the witch.
Yeah, yeah. Incredible movie. For anybody who hasn't seen it, again, if the first few minutes you're like you can't quite get into it because of the language, stick with it.
Mm.
It'll grow on you, you'll understand it, you'll get into it.
Yeah,
And
because even if you don't understand exactly what every word means, the vibe
yeah,
and the tone will overpower you.
exactly.
All right, so now down to the final two, and can't have a list like this without The Exorcist. 1973 movie, directed by William Friedkin, from screenplay by William Peter Blatty, based on his own 1971 novel. So it's one of the rare occasions in Hollywood where the novelist writes his own screenplay, and that's really hard because you have to cut a lot of shit down and make it into a marketable commercial film.
Yeah,
And
and
of
write
course,
differently too.
yep. And of course, Linda Blair is the little girl who gets possessed by. Everybody thinks it's the devil, but it's actually some sort of lesser demon. But
Yeah, I think it's because in one scene it says I'm the devil, but it
mm,
clearly isn't. But yeah.
Ellen Bernstein turns in a great performance. Max von Sydow, Jason Miller plays the priest, and it just follows this little girl who's possessed by a demon and the priest who is conflicted with his faith and trying to reconcile that while at the same time trying to save this little girl's life. And it was a massive hit, and basically just put supernatural horror on the map as like a very bankable, both critical and financial entity, because it made almost $450 million on a $12 million budget, and adjust that for inflation, and it's just like that's like Avengers level shit for
Yeah.
real.
People's like
And
great grandchildren will be living fine off of the the results of this movie.
yeah, and interestingly, it came out on Boxing Day, day after Christmas, 1973. So when people are feeling their most like religious and happy for Christmas, then they go to see this thing, and they're like, like there were literally people like fainting in the theaters, and because nothing like this had ever been done. You know, a little what is she like a pre, like just a budding pubescent girl, not even a teenager yet, just
Yeah, I think Linda Blair was 14 when she filmed this. I'm not sure what her character is supposed to be, but
but had to be around there, like
yeah.
very young teenager, and just spinning her head around, masturbating with a crucifix. Like I can't. In 73, like I can't even
Saying some
imagine.
of the filthiest shit you'll
Yeah,
hear.
yeah, your
Yeah.
mother sucks cocks in hell. Like what the fuck? And the fact that they got away with it, and but I mean, money talks. So yeah, anyway, the older priest winds up getting killed by the demon, and the main priest, through all of his trials and tribulations, winds up taking the entity into his own body and killing himself to save the young girl.
Yeah, this is still freaky to this day. This I just finished rewatching just before we started this podcast because I hadn't watched it in a few years.
Oh, are
Uh,
you okay?
yeah, yeah, I'm all right, but damn, this movie still hits,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
and it's also, I mean, it hits on its own, but it's also whenever we're talking about movies from 30, 40 years ago, before this time, you have to also put it in the situation of the time when that movie came out. As you said,
Hmm.
people were fainting in theaters here. Today we're very familiar with possession movies and all these different kind of haunting and all these kind of things. This
Overly
is,
familiar.
yeah, yeah, overly familiar. There's too many of them.
Yeah.
This was very novel at the time. And so again, this is an incredible movie because it also set the stage and was the template for a lot of these things in terms of how they showed this possession, the girl rising up from the her head spinning around, rising up from the bed, all this kind of stuff, levitating. But this movie still is just freaky
Hmm.
because I think it, and I think the thing, as I was watching it, I was trying to narrow down what it is that is most unsettling about it. And I think what this movie does really well is that the priests themselves have doubts.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So it's not just like you're walking in, oh, we're this, we're the Ghostbusters or whatever. But
Yeah.
but not
Great.
the Ghostbusters, but
That's great.
but
Yeah.
like in the Conjuring movies, it's like, oh, we're these people and we go in there and we get rid of these things, and
Yep.
this is our job. This is what we deal with. The priests themselves, they aren't quite sure what they're dealing with. They don't know if it's real, what they would deem as a real possession or not. They don't like, and they're wrestling with their own issues. All of this is a gray area, and nobody knows what's happening. And it's just everybody is fucking terrified of what's happening because it's this little girl who in the beginning of this movie was just this this sweet young girl who loved her mom and just was happy. And I think that's the thing I was trying to put my finger on, and I think that's what it is that the movie does a great job of not just being black and white, oh, it's the devil, kill it and it's done.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's conflicted, everybody's confused, and that just makes everything so unsettling.
Yeah, plus the mom goes through every like Western medicine technique,
Mm-hmm.
like putting her through every kind of test, blood tests,
Yep.
MRIs, everything that Western medicine has to offer, and nothing even remotely works. So she has to the very like literally the very last straw is to call up the Catholic Church and be like, what
Yeah.
what else can you
See what we can
do?
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Linda Blair, I mean, we've got to, as I said, she was 14 when she filmed this. And, she must have been possessed by some sort of acting demon because, she never really did anything this notable in her entire career. But she was unbelievable. Like the way she moved her eyes and her body, and like that scene where like her tongue's flicking out and like doing things like, I don't know how a 14-year-old actress came up with this shit, but it is insane performance.
Hmm.
All right. Oh yeah. So that's me now, getting to number one. I was just about to take another drink of this pumpkin spice punch. I'm hooked. I was so skeptical. Now I'm hooked. All right. Number one, we have The Shining. And so this is obviously a 1980 film directed by Stanley Kubrick, co-written with Diane Johnson, stars Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Daniel Lloyd, and Scatman Crothers.
Yeah.
It is based on a 1977 Stephen King novel, and famously, Stephen King did not like this adaptation at all for a number of reasons. Some which I kind of understand, some which are less understandable. He didn't like the casting of Nicholson. He thought it should have been more of an everyman, and Nicholson was one of the most famous actors in the world by 1980. Um, he also thinks Kubrick's version was more about the evil inside the characters, whereas his story was more about the supernatural element. I kind of agree. I'm not entirely sure that that's a fair criticism, though. He also didn't like Shelley Duvall's depiction of the female character. That one I agree with, and we can talk about that. I mean, she is just like a screaming mess pretty much the whole movie. But okay, let's get into what this movie did. So I don't really need to explain the plot, but I guess I will just very briefly for anybody who's been living under a rock and hasn't heard of this. It's a family removes to the summer resort hotel so that they can be the caretakers of this hotel over the winter when nobody's staying there. And the father is an author and wants to work on his novel. The father, played by Jack Nicholson. His character's name is Jack Torrance. That's the plot. And then basically, all these things start happening. The hotel is obviously haunted, and Jack Torrance very rapidly starts losing his mind to the point that he takes an axe and is trying to kill his family. So that's basically the plot. This movie, fun tidbit, this opened on the exact same weekend as The Empire Strikes Back. And it actually had a higher per screen average than Empire Strikes Back.
Well, it's a perfect counter.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But yeah, this would have been before counter programming was a thing
Yeah.
in theaters. But yeah, this might have been the original, like, perfect example of it. But it was actually screened in far few theaters than Empire Strikes Back, so it didn't make as much money. So it did all right with critics at the time. Reaction was definitely mixed. But it did fairly well with audiences. Again, not Empire Strikes Back money. It made like 48 million on a $19 million budget, but it is, just stuck with people for so many obvious reasons that can get into. And it's now become one of the most remembered movies of all time, let alone horror movies of all time. It shows up on 3 of the AFI top 100 lists, including the 100 thrills list, the 100 heroes and villains list for the villain, Jack Torrance, and the 100 movie quotes list for Here's Johnny, which, interestingly enough, was actually an improvised quote by Nicholson as he broke down the door. And Kubrick apparently didn't actually understand the reference and didn't really know what he was talking about, because even though Kubrick's American, he spent most of his life in England. And so he just, he didn't really know Johnny Carson. That wasn't something that he had ever watched. And so he almost used a different take. And then somebody sort of told him, actually, no, this is a really good take. Use that one. Which it's amazing that somebody actually told Kubrick which take to make.
Okay.
I guess I don't know how that happened. So, this movie is legend in terms of, like, so much stuff happened on this set, good and bad, including, very bad, some horrible treatment of Shelley Duvall by Kubrick and Jack Nicholson to some extent, which was part of Kubrick's process, but still doesn't really make it any better. He was trying to make her feel isolated and kind of crazy, and that's sort of what worked. And it's one of these movies that's just so rich in terms of what's in there that there's a million different interpretations of like meaning and symbolism. And I think that's a hallmark of a great movie in general, but also a really good horror movie, right? That people can keep talking about it and keep debating it years later. And, some people think, oh, this is about, genocide of Native Americans. This is about this. This is about that. There's so many different theories out there about this movie. And I think that's just because it's so dense and rich in what it's about. And it's Kubrick. So, maybe in some ways Eggers has become the new Kubrick when you were talking about every shot is a painting. Kubrick is that is Kubrick to a T. Every shot of every Kubrick movie is meticulously planned and is brilliant. And this I was kind of surprised it was number 1 on our list, but it was very high up on both our lists that it made number one. So I guess in that way, it's not that much of a surprise.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised about that as well, but yeah, you just illustrated that. And yeah, this was my favorite horror movie of all time until The Witch came out.
Mm.
So The Witch is currently my favorite horror movie of all time. But um yeah, okay, you covered a lot there.
Yes.
Let's see.
I had the most notes for this movie of any, and I didn't even rewatch it this week because I've seen it, so many times.
And yeah, this is another one that we covered in our 80s Century Series
We
podcast
did.
back
You're
back on
right.
Spotify.
We did.
So if you want to get like super super in depth, because um, each one of those Century Series were like 2 episodes and 2 hours apiece. So
Yeah. Yeah,
we
we went
really
really deep.
yeah. But yeah, okay, so man, where to start? Okay, yeah, Scatman Crothers, great casting. Shelley Duvall, yeah, totally abused. Roger Eggers being the new Kubrick, I agree with the at least the shot style, but I don't think he's as much of an asshole as
No,
Kubrick
no, no, fair enough. I
was.
just meant in terms of like
No,
how he thinks about his shots, but
no, I get it. Yeah, but yeah, Kubrick was a total megalomaniac, which is actually I didn't know about the Carson thing, but that's not surprising to me because I don't know what Stanley Kubrick would do in his spare time if he actually had any quote unquote spare
all
time.
right.
I think he was just constantly either working on film or editing or he was just consumed by his art.
Yeah.
Like I, I mean, what
Or
are
he
those
was
like?
taking photographs because he was a photographer before that, or he would have been in art galleries or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he's
don't think
just like
Kubrick would have been watching Carson.
he's just like a mad scientist. Like how you can be that good of an artist without even taking in any pop culture is a really interesting avenue to go down. But yeah, I do agree that and as I said, I love this movie so much, but I do agree in retrospect with Stephen King's point that Jack was probably a bit miscast because he Jack Nicholson has always been like the crazy guy,
Yeah.
the wild eyebrows, and we're
Right.
never we're never gonna think that he starts out as a normal guy and ends up as a normal guy, So I mean, this is the guy who came to prominence in Easy Rider and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and
Yeah.
so uh, I do empathize with Stephen King over that, but his Jack's performance was still just incredible, and if you didn't have that kind of shade over it, then because again, I saw this movie probably way too young. I was like 7 or 8,
Me too.
and
Me too. I don't. I was probably about that age when I first saw this too, and yeah, they're like the scene with the old lady, for instance, still scares me to this day. Like that. Oh my, when like you can see her flesh. Oh, that
yeah,
just. Oh my goodness. That and of course the blood and the twins. When I first saw this, that just traumatized me.
yeah. I mentioned last week. I think it was during the Nightmare on Elm Street segment that yeah, little girls always creep me out in horror movies. Just because they're like the embodiment of innocence, and
Yeah, yeah.
when they do something fucked up or evil, it's just like, oh god, then that's it. That's like the end of
That's everything.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, when the two twin girls show up, and Danny's just riding his
His big wheel.
big
I,
wheel.
I
Yes,
had a
thank
big
you,
wheel
thank you,
exactly
thank you.
like that as a kid, actually. Fucking love that thing.
Come play with us, Danny, forever and ever and ever. Every time I see that, that still sends chills down my spine. So while Kubrick wasn't really a horror guy, fuck if he didn't nail it down in this
Yeah.
one. And
Yeah.
the even all the foreshadowing with the hedge maze and never really knowing, because you said at the onset that the hotel is haunted, but do we ever really know that the
Mm,
hotel is haunted, or is this all happening in Jack's brain? So
right.
I think
Right.
in Stephen King's novel it's explicitly haunted.
Haunted. Yeah.
but I always like this kind of ambiguity with horror movies, and I
I
think
agree,
that's
actually. Yeah.
I think that's why it's so high on our list, is because if if it's just straight up haunted, like as you said earlier with the Conjuring or something like that, then okay, yeah, you come into a haunted house and well, just clear it out. But
Yeah, yeah,
eh,
dispel the ghosts and whatever. Yeah.
yeah, but if there's some subtlety and some nuance, and we don't really know what's going on at the end, we just know that it's a lot of fucked up shit going on in this hotel, then yeah, makes it I think a worthy entry in the top of our list, especially with both of our sensibilities.
Yeah, and look, no shade to Stephen King. He is one of the greatest storytellers of the last 100 years, without question.
Hmm.
Uh, but maybe not necessarily one of the great filmmakers. Maybe because of this, I don't know if it was because of this that the one film that he decided to direct himself off of his writings was kind of laughably ridiculous, and that was Maximum Overdrive.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah,
So, he's, as I said, one of the greatest storytellers, one of the greatest writers, just an incredible person in terms of the causes and things he supports. But in this case, I think I'd defer to Kubrick in terms of filmmaking.
yeah. I mean, it's understandable. It's his brainchild. It's his
Of course,
baby.
of course.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's completely understandable. But yeah, that I have to side with Kubrick as well on this one.
All righty. So that's our 11, our top 10 list of 11.
Yeah, and we went pretty long tonight, but
Damn, we did.
horror is a super popular genre, and I don't blame you guys if you want to digest this one in pieces. But you know, happy
Hey,
happy
don't cut
out
us up into pieces.
or do. That'd make it for a great story. It'll probably get us so many more followers if one of us gets brutally murdered.
That's true.
But, but we're gonna be releasing this. Actually, it is technically Halloween now. We just passed midnight, so
Oh, damn, we did. Yeah.
yeah, we're releasing this on Halloween. So happy Halloween, everybody! Happy trick or treating. Hope you go to plenty of costume parties, have fun. Again, don't get murdered. But I'm Zach Miller. He's Martin Cook. We're talking about Diane Keaton next week because we put her off for Halloween, but icon, and we'll see you next week on the Unsolicited Film Reviews podcast.
Goodbye, everyone, and go Jays, go.